My dad told me I had 2 months to move out of his house to make room for his new child, despite paying rent to him for the last 2 years, but when my grandpa caught wind of what he was doing, he threw it all back in my dad's face. I, 21F, lost my mom when I was 14. My dad remarried when I was 17. My stepmom has a daughter, 15F. She and dad had a boy, 3M, and now she just gave birth to a little girl. Anyway, I have worked since I was 16 to only have some money to buy stuff for me. When I turned 18, my dad said I was now an adult and should have to start paying rent. It was quote unquote only $500, a symbolic amount since he would still cover food and other essentials. I was mad and we fought, but then in the end I accepted and that was the arrangement until 7 months ago. Dad came to me saying I had 2 months to move out, my stepmom was pregnant and they would need room for the baby, which is insane because they both have private offices. My stepmom doesn't even need one since she's a stay-at-home mom since the birth of my baby brother. Nonetheless, they told me I had to move. By the way, just an addendum. Me and my stepmom get around fine. We don't fight or bicker. I don't think this was an evil stepmom moment, but who knows? Me and my stepsister are actually pretty close. I help her with homework and talk about her personal problems. I do love her very much. Back to the story. I don't know what to do. I'm going to college, I want to be a civil engineer, and I work part-time. I don't have the means to live by myself. I called my aunt asking if I could move in with her for the time being until I figured something out, and I offered to pay rent and all. She was aghast at what my dad was doing. She said I could absolutely live with her, no rent needed, but also said she was going to deal with my dad. The next day, my grandpa came to our house and they talked privately. I could hear my dad's angry voice, but couldn't understand anything being said. After a while, grandpa came to my room and said I had three choices. The first was to continue living with my dad and stepmom like I was doing. Nothing would change except without paying rent. The second was moving in with him and grandma, or my aunt. Third was find a place of my own and he would pay the rent and cost for me. He said I didn't need to choose now. I could keep living with dad, and if I changed my mind, to just tell him. I was actually relieved I could still live at home with dad and that this madness was over. But the following days and weeks, my dad and stepmom were very hostile towards me, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable being in my own home. Even Cassie picked this up and asked me why they were angry at me. So I decided to move out and told grandpa. He said he would take care of everything, and a few weeks later, he moved me into one of his rental units. The apartment is lovely. He bought me a fridge, stove, and other essential items, and he gave me a check for $15,000 saying this money is to help me start living on my own. Wow, bro, this grandpa is balling. And that as long as I'm working or studying, I can live there rent free for as long as I want. My dad and I have been pretty low contact since I moved out. He never came to visit me or I visit them. I miss them a lot, especially my stepsister, but I am still hurt. Dang, it's crazy how they just switch up on her like that when she stops paying rent. It's clear that the dad only wanted her for her money or something. I'm not really sure. Anyways, 2 weeks ago, my stepmom gave birth. I visited them in a hospital. It was a little awkward, but it was nice seeing them and my baby sister. Anyways, a few days ago, my dad called me saying he missed me, the children missed me, and that I should move back home. He apologized for asking me to move out, etc., and I told him I would think about it. Yesterday, I visited my aunt and was telling her what my dad said, and my cousin laughed a little and said, I'm sure he does. I asked what she meant, and that's when they told me a lot of, until now, unknown information. Basically, my dad's home is actually my grandpa's, as is my aunt's. Basically, the deal he made with me, he did with all his kids and some grandkids as well. He never wanted any of his families to have to worry about basic stuff like housing and food, etc. Wow, bro, see, he really is balling. So what's up with the dad, man? He lives there rent free, didn't have to pay for a house payment or anything, and he just has a free house and he's charging this kid rent? The heck? When I called my aunt that time, she called my grandpa, who was furious with my dad, not only for kicking me out, but also for charging me rent. That day he went to my dad's and tore him a new one and threatened to have him evicted. But now the petty part, you know that 15K grandpa gave me? It's actually what I paid dad in rent all that time, and now he's making dad pay him back. Oh. So he's charging dad $1,200 for the rent loss in the apartment I'm living in. Dang, he lost his daughter, 15 grand, and he's losing $1,200 a month. All because he wanted his daughter to pay rent. Call me dumb or naive, but until now, I never realized my dad didn't make that much money. We lived in a great house, always went on vacations, and lived very comfortable lives, but I guess grandpa has always been helping him behind the scenes. Now my cousin thinks my dad is struggling, with three kids at home, a single income, and having to pay it back to grandpa. So he says dad wants me back because he imagines grandpa will stop quote unquote punishing him if I'm back living with them. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I'm actually loving living on my own these past 6 months. But I do really miss them. I miss my siblings. I miss the life we had before all this, but I don't know if moving back home is the right answer. And also, I'm hurt the reason he wants me back is my money. Honestly, I just wanted to vent. If I was her, I wouldn't move back in with my parents. I just saw my dad's true colors for the first time, and Now he just wants me for my money? Yeah, I'm not moving him back in with them. And the comments seem to agree with me. One says, I'm so very sorry that your father has hurt you so much. He doesn't want you, though. He wants money. And knowing this is always going to hurt you and chip away at your self worth. I know it hurts, but going back is not healthy for you. You deserve people in your life who love you unconditionally and want to spend time with you because it's you and without ulterior motives. How about starting new traditions with your aunts and grandparents? They love you and want you around. I wish you all the best. And OP responds, this is the weird part because I know my dad only wants me for my money, but it's also difficult to see him that way. These past 6 months, I wondered why he kicked me out if I hadn't done something wrong. Now I'm thinking, was it all about money? And yeah, that's a crazy thing to think about. You lived with your dad for 21 years, and now you realize that for the last 3 years, he was just seeing you as a basically side source of income for him. And he didn't even have any house bills or anything to pay. Who knows if the grandpa was covering all of his living expenses? We don't know because this grandpa is balling out of his mind. So that leads me to the update, which starts with I want to give you guys an update since you've all been so helpful and kind to me. I was so overwhelmed by the support you gave me. Thanks 1,000 times. Before, just answering some questions people had. My aunt and grandpa are from my father's side of the family. My mom's side, unfortunately, I don't have much contact. My grandparents have passed away before my mom. I have uncles and aunts I see once in a while, but they don't live close. I also have two other uncles from my father's side. I'm close to them, but not as near as my aunt. She was my rock when my mom passed. I consider her a second mom. My stepmom knew about the rent I was paying. It was implied my stepsister would need to do the same when she turned 18, but I don't know if she knew Dad didn't own the house or the extent of how much Grandpa has financially helped Dad. To the update. Monday, the day after my post, I called Dad and said I decided not to move back in. I didn't mention anything I was told, just that I was well settled here and moving back seemed like a step back. I also said I wanted to keep my contact with them. They could invite me for dinner whenever they wanted, and I also said I would love for my stepsister and brother to come see me. He was disappointed, and I didn't feel any angriness in his tone at the least, but he said, we'll see, and left it at that. I was disappointed. But then Friday he called me, asked if I wanted to have lunch Sunday, today. I said I already had plans with Grandpa and Grandma. He asked when I would be free, so he scheduled a dinner for Thursday. I haven't told any of this to my stepsister. We talk and text regularly. She also hasn't heard that they've been talking about me, but she did say that her grandma, her mom's mom, is there to help with the baby and is being incredibly annoying. I laughed at that. I wanted to offer her to sleep over here, but I didn't want to get her excited just for Dad to say no, so I'll try to talk with them Thursday. The big update is I've just came back from visiting Grandma and Grandpa. We spent a lovely day together, but I also said I wanted to know everything that was going on. I wasn't a kid anymore, and I felt like living in lies. The most important things were my cousin and my aunt told me last week, but there were a few more. Grandpa had been subsidizing quite often our basic needs like school, healthcare, etc., because Dad didn't have 1 cent saved up according to Grandpa. Also, my college fund was mainly contributed to by him and Mom before her passing. I guess that makes sense. I was also dumb not to realize this sooner. He also has set up funds for my baby siblings and also one for my stepsister, because he didn't want her to feel excluded and not have the same opportunities as her siblings. This man is incredible. I love him so much. And yes, I'm very, very lucky. I've seen so many people commenting this, not in a derogatory way, but being very supportive and nice. I know I'm very privileged to have grandparents and family members who can afford and are willing to help me. I hope one day I can help others the way they are helping me. Anyways, I also expressed worries about Dad's financial situation, and he assured me Dad is fine, more than fine. He will have to be less frivolous with money for a while, but that he would never let any of his kids or grandkids to suffer or to be in need of anything. As many of you said he's trying to teach Dad a lesson, I should have taught him a long time ago, so I'll stay out of it. I don't think I'll tell Dad that I know all this. I know many of you said to confront him, but I think it's for the best if he continues to think I'm oblivious. Lastly, we talked about why Dad kicked me out. He didn't have an answer either. I could see he and Grandma were very hurt by what my dad did. He said he asked for an explanation, but he didn't get one. That's it for now. I'll continue trying having a relationship with my siblings outside of my dad and stepmom. I also tried to schedule some weekly dinners with them. I know what you guys said about my father is mostly true, but I need to at least try to have a relationship with them. If not for him, for my siblings, and for me. But don't worry, I won't let him hurt me anymore. I don't know why I expected that from her dad, like just for him to be not in a great place financially, but I kind of predicted it. Anyways, I'm gonna go to the second update now, which starts with there isn't much of an update, but some people messaged me asking about how was the dinner. So last Thursday I went there after work. Gosh, I miss my siblings so much, and I spent the majority of the time with them. My baby brother is not a baby anymore. He's grown so much. My baby sister is so cute. I could eat her alive. Whoa, what? Okay. I never wanted to be apart from them anymore. Doesn't matter what happens. Cassie, I said her name once in my original post by mistake. She's my stepsister, is the only one I maintained regular contact through calls and texts. She's just an amazing person as well. She knows I didn't move out in the best of circumstances, but she doesn't know all the details or anything about the money. I asked if she wanted to have a sleepover at my house sometime, and she was thrilled. If I hadn't stopped her, she would have started packing that second. Hey, it's great that her stepsister and her have that close bond like that. You don't see that very often with step siblings, at least in my experience on Reddit. My stepmom's mom was still there to help with the baby, and guess where she's staying? My old bedroom. They transformed it into a guest room, and the baby room was my stepmom's old office because it's closer to the master's room. Honestly, that hurt a little. I've only met my stepmom's parents a few times. They were always nice to me. This time she kept looking at me weird all the time. Didn't matter where I was or where I moved, she was keeping track of me like she was expecting me to try and steal something. When I was holding the baby, she didn't leave my side. Anyways, apart from that, dinner went as well as you can imagine. A little awkward, but I was glad I could see my siblings and spend a few hours playing with them. At the end, I mentioned Cassie having a sleepover this weekend. Her grandmother started saying that absolutely not, Cassie would not go, but to my surprise, my stepmom stopped her. She said if Cassie wanted, I could pick her up Saturday after soccer practice. From that dinner was that. When I was leaving, stepmom gave me a really tight hug. So many people were saying how she's just an evil stepmom that I kinda started to believe it. But as I said in my first post, we always had a good relationship. I left very confused and emotional. Saturday afternoon, I picked up Cassie. We watched Inside Out 2, then we ate shawarma, oh, I probably butchered that, for the first time, which is basically a meat burrito. I don't see the difference. It was so good to spend the day with her. I'm so glad to have her in my life. Sunday, I dropped her off and went inside to see my other siblings. My dad wasn't there. He was out meeting a work friend. Some people asked what my dad does. He's a lawyer, and my stepmom used to work for an advertisement company, but is now a stay-at-home mom. We have another dinner scheduled for Friday. I don't know if I'll ever find out exactly why they wanted me to move or why they charged me rent. I don't want to touch the subject now because I don't want to jeopardize my relationship with my siblings. So I don't know if I'll have any more updates since things are settling down and is now just life. But if I find out in the future, I'll update. You guys have been incredible. Thanks so much for all the words of kindness and support you gave me. Talking it out and then reading your replies have helped me immensely. I also took people's suggestions and do therapy, and this Friday will be my first session. So it's a bit of a slice of life update, but as we know, there's two more updates, so let's see where this goes. Update 3. So, things blew up a little, and I don't even know where to start. Oh, that's a great start. I still haven't processed everything I've been told. Okay, I wonder what's gonna happen here. Since my last update, things have been normal from my side. I had another dinner with my parents the Friday before last. Stepmom's mom, who I'll call Ebby, meaning evil bitch, spoilers, was still giving me the dirty eye, but I ignored her. I had scheduled dinner with them for last Friday, and I was talking to them about taking my little brother to the park yesterday. But Wednesday, my dad called me asking if I could instead postpone dinner and instead go to Grandpa's on Saturday because he needed to talk with the whole family. Meanwhile, I had been talking to Cassie and she's been telling me stepmom, I'll call her Ste, and Ebby have been fighting a lot. Well, last Sunday, Ste's father showed up. I'll call him Labby, meaning lying bastard. There's a big fight and Labby and Ebby go back home on Monday. So yesterday afternoon I go to Grandpa's. My aunt was there as well. Then Dad and Ste arrive with Cassie. Dad was clearly embarrassed. He apologized to me, to my grandparents. Ste apologized to me as well. And Dad gave an explanation slash apology for everything that happened in the last few years. Some things I already knew, but Cassie didn't. She was present for the whole thing. So I'll try to tell everything here. I don't know how coherent I'll be, but I hope you can follow me. Years and years ago, Grandpa and a friend started a company. The company was very successful. When Dad was 25, Grandpa sold the company and made a lot of money. So he decided to give each child a home. He gave his kids $350,000 each with the promise they would use to buy homes or pay out the mortgages. Grandpa had seen people lose their homes and didn't want that to happen to his kids. Dad didn't buy a home, however. He actually moved to New York to start his own practice and become a quote unquote big and successful lawyer. As you can imagine, things didn't turn out so well for him. Half a decade later, he has no money left, can't pay rent, and so he reaches out to Grandpa and moved back home. Grandpa helps him find a job with a buddy of his. After a while, Dad started to put his life back together, rented a home and moved out from Grandpa's, met my mom and started dating her. They fell in love, and after a while he asked her to marry her. Before they married, Grandpa came to them and said he would give them a home. He had already talked with his other kids and they were fine with it. But because he didn't trust Dad, and the home is so Dad's future kids would always have a roof over their heads, the home would stay in his name, and as his will, they would go directly to his dad's kids. So I was actually mistaken before. My uncles and aunt don't live in homes owned by my grandpa. Only my dad does, and I think two cousins of mine do as well. Next thing, I was born. Life is good for a while. Then my mom passed away. Dad struggled while taking care of me alone. That's when Grandpa started to help financially. A few more years go by, and Dad meets Ste. But Dad is embarrassed about not owning the house and that Grandpa is helping him, so he never tells Ste any of this. For her, Dad was just a moderately successful lawyer. They marry, she becomes pregnant, she asks if she can become a full time stay at home mom, and Dad is embarrassed to say no, so he tells her it's fine. In the meanwhile, now with three kids, plus a stay at home wife, Dad is struggling even more, Grandpa is helping even more, and Dad's savings are being diminished day by day. Dad admits that he kind of threw Stet under the bus to Grandpa, blaming her for his financial problems to Grandpa so Grandpa would continue helping for the sake of his kids. Now I need to go back a little and talk about Labby and Ebby. Just as Stet, they think Dad is a rich, successful lawyer, and they start saying to Dad how he's spoiling me, how I'm gonna be irresponsible with my money, how I have an easy life. That's when Labby was my age. He had to pay rent to his dad, and he did the same with his son, Stez brother, and how successful they've become, never needing anything from anybody, bootstraps, etc. And apparently that got into Dad's head. He became afraid I would be dependent on him, or more likely Grandpa, and his money, instead of being successful on my own. He became afraid I would be a failure like him that still needs his dad to bail him out, so he started getting parenting advice from his in laws. Why not ask his own dad, who's much more successful and raised three-fourths of his kids to be successful as well? I asked, and apparently it's because he felt embarrassed. That comes up again and again and again to explain Dad's action. Embarrassment. He didn't want Grandpa to think even less of him. So, in the context of this post, I don't understand how this dad could be reliant on his father constantly and then be embarrassed when he wants to ask for parental advice. I feel like, if anything, his dad would be more than happy to give his son advice, or at least that's what I think, given how nice the grandpa is. Therefore, the rent idea was a suggestion from Lappy. Dad says his initial plan was to save the money and give it to me later, but with a new kid, still not working, and trying to protect Stan and his in-laws how things were fine, saving the money became impossible according to him. By the way, he also lied to me here at the time, saying it's a normal thing to do, that Grandpa had done it to him and his kids, which is a lie I discovered 8 months ago, but with everything else that happened, that seemed small at the time. There's a detail that I didn't disclose in my previous post because it didn't matter, or so I thought, and that is that I'm part of the LGBTQIA plus community. I don't hide this fact. In fact, I was already out to my mom before her passing, but it's not something I advertise either. That'll become relevant. Anyways, continuing. Labby becomes Dad's confidant, and he starts to open himself to him about his money problems, and Labby starts to say things like, I should move out, and things like that to Dad, which is rejected initially. Then Steb becomes pregnant again, and Dad panics. That's when Labby and Ebby come to Dad and say they would help him, not only financially, but Ebby would move in with him and Sted after the baby to help out, and even convince Sted to go back to work, since Ebby would be there taking care of the kids. But for that, I needed to move out. The reason is because the home wouldn't be able to accommodate Ebby, and that it was time I left the nest, etc., so they convinced Dad I needed to move out. Dad didn't just tell Stat any of this, keep in mind, only that he thought it was best for me, and the baby coming was just a great opportunity. According to them, Stat was against this, but Dad pulled the my daughter, I know best card, so she just deferred to him. They tell me I need to move out. I talked about this from my point of view. That day, Grandpa goes to my dad's home and they have a huge fight. Not only Dad and Grandpa, but Dad and Stat. Because it was then that she discovered Dad didn't own the home, Dad had almost no savings, and Dad was dependent on Grandpa. Dad deals with her parents was still a secret. At this point, I asked Steph why then she acted so hostile towards me after that day, so much that made me unwelcomed and wanting to move out, and she looked shocked. She apologized to me and started to cry, saying that she was never mad at me, but at Dad, that she had no idea she was to blame for me moving out. I was crying as well. I said it's not her fault. And guys, I know many of you had said bad things about her, and I don't blame you, but I do believe her. The look on her face when I said I felt unwelcome and that's why I moved out, it's not something you can fake. Now I'm thinking she's as much of a victim of my dad's actions as me, and all this time she was just trying to give me space. So going back to events, I move out. Grandpa not only cuts Dad from all financial support, but starts to charge him money for the house. The only thing he continued paying for is Cassie's education. Now everything is in the open, and Dad and Stay have to cut everything. Dinners, expensive foods, sell her car, etc. Labby and Ebby give them some money as well to help out. Poor Stay is stressed out, pregnant with a lying husband. I'm actually sad for her and what she went through. I was looking at Grandpa, and I could see he was as well. I don't think he realized the amount of stress he was placing on her. I don't know how he will proceed from now on regarding Dad and the house. Before the baby is born, Abby moves in with Dad and Ste. Ste gives birth, things are normal. But with the new baby, Dad feels even more guilty over what happened, and that's when he called me. Again, this part I already told you, jumping to when I went to dinner the first time. Dad and Ste also recognized Ebby's acting strange towards me. After I left, they talked. Nothing came from it. But Ste kept talking to Dad about Mom. And Dad started to tell her his conversations with Ebby and Labby about money and raising kids, etc. After my second dinner, Ste confronted her mom, and they had a huge fight. And apparently, that's when she said something in the lines of, I can't believe you're letting that slur back into your home after getting rid of her. And that's when the coin dropped for Dad, and he realized how much of a fool he has been. They kicked Ebby out, Labby came to pick her up, and they had another fight. Dad actually wanted to act as nothing has happened, continue with me visiting and rebuilding the relationship, but Ste put her foot down and said he needed to come clean about everything, not only to me, but to Cassie as well, and everyone. And so we came to the present. I was crying, Ste was crying, Cassie was crying, Dad was crying, Aunt was crying, Grandpa was crying, Grandma, who hadn't said a single word, was holding me tight. According to Dad, that's all. No more lies, no more deception. Dad instead left after that. I slept at Grandma's because I was in no state to drive. Came home this morning, took a long ass shower, cried a lot, and now I'm taking this out to see if it helps me make sense of all this. Make sense of my thoughts and feelings. I guess that's the end of the story. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I feel sad, angry, sorry for Stan and Casey. I feel everything and nothing. I'll be calling my therapist tomorrow to see if we can book more sessions. I've been going every Friday, but I can't wait a whole week. On the bright side, whoever had bet evil step grandmother won. Wow, there is a lot to unpack in this update, but I'm gonna actually give some credit to the dad for being able to speak on all of his issues because that's hard in itself. I know, the dad is not exactly a good person, but you have to give him some credit here for actually being able to speak about his hardships and all of his lies and just come clean with it all, even if it was years too late and none of it should have happened in the first place. Although trying to replace his own daughter with his new wife's mom is a pretty messed up thing to do. So again, I still don't like the dad, but I'm going to give him credit where credit is due. Also, he was almost getting manipulated by his wife's parents. I mean, these people are trying to tell him how he should raise his kids because he came to them for advice, but they're giving him the worst advice ever, and I don't understand why, if not for their own personal gain. Like, there must be more to this. Well, of course there is because it's another update, but there has to be more behind their secret plan to brainwash this dad into thinking that he's doing the right thing, right? Or I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too hard. And I feel especially bad for his new wife because she just doesn't deserve to go through any of this. She was lied to by his dad, her parents, literally almost everyone. And she's been left in the dust this whole time and just been kind of pushed to the side like she didn't really matter. Like her life and her stress wasn't important. Anyways, we have update 4, which is posted over a year after the last update. First, I'm in a much better place emotionally, as last year I was a complete wreck. I'm doing very well for the most part. Now, after everything hit the fan that day, life went back to normal more or less. We started family therapy for a while. It started promising with Dad being willing and open, but after a while he regressed and became less willing to put on the work until he stopped going. Me, Cassie, and stepmom continued going for a while but stopped as well. I continue with individual therapy and my psychiatrist wants me to make an evaluation for ADHD, but wants to wait until I'm fully emotionally and psychologically stable. Stepmom and Cassie continue individual therapy as well. As I imagine most could guess, stepmom and dad ended up separating after a few months. At first it was temporary, but now there's no going back. Divorce is not finalized yet, however. Stepmom stayed on the house as grandpa would not accept anything else. I started going there to help stepmom with the baby and my little brother more and more, until I was spending almost all my time there, so me and stepmom decided I would move back. I thought grandpa would be disappointed, as he was very proud of how well I was doing on my own, but he looked happy when I told him. He said he'll keep that unit a little longer out of the market if I ever need it. I continued going to uni, but took only a half load of classes this last year. Now I'm back to a full schedule. Fluid mechanics is a pain. Home life has actually been pretty good. Me and my stepmom became really close this last year. She went back to work while I left mine to help with the kids, and I truly prefer this as taking care of my siblings is much more enjoyable. But also, Grandpa insisted on paying me to babysit. Next year, I'll start interning on a construction company from my grandpa's friend. I know many people insisted my stepmom knew everything or was somewhat complacent with dad's actions, but I truly believe and trust her. She's been almost no contact with her parents, and they are forbidden to visit. Cassie has also stepped in and is helping a lot around the house, and Grandpa also insists on paying her for her time. We know this is his way of helping us without making it sound too much like charity. My baby sister is a little devil, running all over the house. The little Lucifer, or Lucy as I call her, that's not her name, but I do actually call her Lucy sometimes, and didn't even learn to crawl properly. She went directly to walking. We need to keep constant vigilance because it seems her head has a magnetic pull towards sharp corners. My little brother was the one hit the hardest by my dad moving out. I know these posts have painted a terrible picture of my father, and I'm not excusing anything he did, but he was a good dad otherwise, and my little brother was very attached to him. Me and my father barely speak nowadays. He acts like we should all forget everything and move on, which I still cannot do. There's no former custody agreement between him and stepmom, but he picks my brother up twice or thrice a month to spend the day or weekend. And now that my sister is older, hers sometimes too. Overall, I'm in a much better place than I was last year. I have an incredible family, amazing grandparents, loving siblings, and my stepmom has become a really close friend. I even got a girlfriend. Nice, good for you. I also know I'm extremely privileged to have a supportive family and system. In no moment in all of this have I ever had to worry about having a roof over my head or food on the table, which unfortunately is not everyone's experience in similar situations, as I've been told, sometimes harshly, over private messages. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone who read or commented something. The support on my first post was the push I needed to stop being naive and ignore things. Posting here was a great way to help me figure out my thoughts and feelings, but I probably won't do any more updates, as I consider this chapter of my life closed now. Well, that's it for the update, and that's it for the story. But all I have to say is don't let pride destroy your whole life like this dad did. Because now he doesn't even see his kids that much. And when he gets divorced, I highly doubt he's even going to fight for any sort of joint custody. But he might just so that he doesn't have to pay child support. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the dad is a great person, even though I did kind of glaze him for being emotionally vulnerable right there in the last update. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you all think, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.